the organization that I was hired to go to work for had no donor base to speak of when I came on board. They had bingo revenue, they had some state contracts for the provision of services, but didn't have much in the way of private or foundation grant money at all. And they had a donor base of 50 individuals. When I left that organization 7 years later, there was a little, going away party, and they noted that in the time I'd been there, the donor base had grown from 50 people to over 1,000 donors, which is an example of, how do you take it from essentially zero to not zero? Well, the first thing you do is look around and figure out who might care about what you're doing and get those names into your database and then start telling your story. So the first year I spent a tremendous amount of time just gathering names and information about people that I knew cared about these issues. And regardless of whether or not they supported other similar organizations, they needed to know about this organization because it was a part of the continuum of services that matter to these, these types of people in our community, people who really care about women and kids, who really think that violence isn't okay, that really understand that sexual assault and domestic violence affects us all. And to the degree that we eradicate it, we improve our society. We make it a better place for everyone. I mean, there's people who have those community values. And they needed to know the story of the organization for which I was working because it was sort of an untold story to them. It was a piece of the puzzle they didn't know about. And so that first couple of years was really about storytelling, really about marketing, and really about getting the word out. Well, so how do we fit in the mix? And people started to come on board. We instituted an annual giving plan, a campaign, so people could give regularly and they would hear from us regularly and there'd be follow-up. And it grew. And of course, events play a huge role in that because through events, you're able to attract friends and donors. We built our board. We started recruiting differently to the board. The executive director had great success in recruiting sort of program and policy people. But with my entrance to the organization, we brought that third leg of the stool in, and I said, got to recruit some fundraisers to the board, people that are going to go out and not only tell the story, but seek out support for the organization and love doing it. And so that was another piece. And again, my job was to facilitate the process. I didn't do it by myself by a long shot. It was just, I was there to say, well, here's a gap, here's a gap, here's a gap. How can we fill those? What can we do to start taking some actions that will grow our donor base and grow the revenue from private sources? But again, it's always a team effort, whether it's the administrative staff, your program staff, your friends in the community, your donors, your board members, reaching out to donors. You don't do it by yourself. But you might be the one that can see the path. And so you try to help facilitate the walk down that path.
One of the best ways that I've seen in terms of expanding the base has been the informational breakfast, where you say, I'm going to keep it to an hour. I'm going to talk about the organization. I'm going to have a couple of testimonials about the organization. And I'm going to ask people to support the organization. And each table is filled by existing supporters who say, I'm going to reach out to 7 or 8 friends of mine. I'm going to tell them there's no requirement that they give. I just want them to listen. And if they feel that they want to support at the end, then that would certainly be great. So we get people involved. We get them participating, and as they participate, as they become involved, then they begin to see this is not some organization which is removed from me. This is part of who I am, part of how I identify myself. That's when they start saying, I want to make my involvement, I want to make my support, I want to take it to the next level.
And so I came to a board meeting one day and I said, all these people that have been helping us all these years? Yes. And they've been so generous, yes. Why don't we start charging them for that privilege? And they said, oh, you really have completely lost your marbles. And I said, no, what I mean is, let's make them members, and let's have membership dues. And because once they're members, then they have a greater sense of ownership. And they can invite other people to become members. So it was kind of a Friends of concept, and Friends of Legal Services for Seniors. And so they said, well, we think you're really insane because we don't understand why anybody would pay to be doing what they've been doing, all along for free. And I said, well, let's try it. And so I rolled out that idea, we're going to create a Friends of organization and we're going to collect dues. And everybody just got out their checkbook and wrote their dues and invited their friends to become a member. So it was really a way of building our donor base and our volunteer base, But it gave people a sense of ownership. It didn't generate tons of money, but it gave them a sense of ownership. So, they got on our mailing list, but they knew why they were on our mailing list because they were a member of our Friends organization, So that was kind of funny. It was funny selling that idea, but then I was really happy when it worked, and it seemed to work.